From sexual assault to misconduct to discrimination in the military, today's apology for all of it was years in the making. The Defense Minister and Chief of Defense Staff say they're sorry. They admit they've failed survivors time and time again and that things must change. But what action will be taken to back up the words? Anita Anand is the Minister of National Defense. She's in Ottawa. Thanks for joining us, Minister.
Hi, Paul.
I was telling you this off camera that I think it's worth repeating, on camera, that I think people watching you today would quite clearly see that you're quite passionate about this. It would not be news to you by now to know that many survivors say they welcome this apology, but at the same time are stressing action is more important than words. How will the government back up this apology with action?
Well, let me point to 5 measures in particular. First of all, our government committed $236 million towards improving the resources and processes available for victims and survivors of sexual misconduct. This includes expanding the resources under the Sexual Misconduct Resource Center. In addition, we are moving quickly to implement the recommendation of Madame Arbour, given to us on an interim basis, and that will involve transferring the cases from the military justice system to the civil justice system, that is, cases relating to sexual misconduct and sexual harassment. Bill C-77 will be implemented in the spring. In addition, we have the Restorative Engagement Project that Jenny Carignan is leading with a team here to improve supports available, and she will have more to say on that on Wednesday. And then finally, we are looking at a number of additional supports that will be available to victims and survivors, including peer-to-peer supports. And we are accepting the recommendations of Madame Deschamps and Mr. Fish so that we have the ground fully prepared when Madame Arbour renders her report in the spring. In other words, we are solely focused on the need to address the culture crisis in the Canadian Armed Forces, and I am working every day with General Eyre on this very issue.
Inherent in everything you say is that much work needs to be done. In your view, is the Canadian military a safe place to work right now?
When you say much needs to be done, that is most definitely correct. And these are changes that will not take place overnight. There is no silver bullet that can fix a crisis of culture that was identified in 2015 by Marie Deschamps. But what I can assure you, and what General Eyre said today as well, is that this is different. I am determined to ensure that the reforms, many of which I just mentioned, and additional reforms along the way, will be implemented for the protection of victims of sexual assault and sexual misconduct. I am solely focused on this issue for our Canadian Armed Forces. We have to remember that these are the individuals who stepped up to protect our country during COVID-19 in long-term care homes, in delivering vaccines, as well as rescuing people from floods and forest fires and evacuating refugees from Afghanistan. We have an obligation to protect those who are protecting us. And how do we do that? We put in place processes and reforms that will ensure that they receive justice and that they are protected when discrimination and other misconduct befalls them.
Minister, is it a safe place to work right now?
I believe that there is a willingness to change at all levels of the Canadian Armed Forces. And I have been speaking with members of the Canadian Armed Forces in Edmonton, in Shearwater, in Borden. and they are committed to ensuring that the military is a safe place on the ground, and General Eyre and I are working very hard to ensure that this occurs.
You announced in November that the investigation and prosecution of sexual misconduct cases within the military was being transferred to the civilian justice system. Where do things stand on that right now?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is a very important move to see the cases relating to sexual misconduct and sexual harassment move from the military justice system to the civil justice system. And in that regard, I have been meeting with the Director of Military Prosecutions as well as the Provost Marshal, who have assured me that they are working expeditiously on this issue and that these cases should be transferred in the new year.
Should be. Have any been transferred yet?
They are indeed ensuring that with their provincial and territorial counterparts in each of the jurisdictions that the cases can be transferred. So there is a process that is underway. It is complex, but I have been pressing them to make sure that this happens immediately, and indeed have discussed this with Madame Arbour as well in our monthly calls. One
complainant told CBC News that she believes her case was closed in order to keep it from being transferred to civilian authorities, quote, in an attempt to conceal the incompetent nature of the investigation. What do you say when you hear that?
Well, obviously, I am concerned about process, and I'm very concerned about victims' rights. I, at a ministerial level, have the jurisdiction over policy, and that's exactly what I'm seeking to implement here. But as I said, these processes and these policies need to work for everyone who have suffered misconduct and sexual harassment, and therefore I take that information obviously with much seriousness.
We don't have a lot of time left, but as you know, nearly 19,000 people have submitted claims as part of the class action lawsuit. The date for submissions ended November 24th. Some lawyers have suggested the deadline could be extended until the end of January. What do you think about that? Will that happen?
We did already extend the deadline, but my view is that we need to maximize the number of people who can benefit from this class action lawsuit, and I will look into this with my team.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.